both these trains play it, because this is not something I've got any experience with. Right, here we go. Let's go. It's the shiny ground on the other side as well. Absolutely love it. Alongside that Fluttermane, and for Leon's end, Miraidon, and that Farigiraf. A classic duo from back in the day.
Yeah, classic duos on both ends, like enabling each other. There's the Electric Seed helping out the Farigiraf, and then Sun activating to activate the photosynthesis of Fluttermane as well. So basically, perfectly complementing each other's partners here. The big question is going to be, is there anything stopping a Trick Room from going up here? Because there's no Calyrex on the field yet, so if you can position yourself, bring in your own Calyrex, and we actually see a little preview there. Scraggy's in the back, so we might see that in action here.
Yes.
So if you are confident that you're going to maybe survive a incoming Moonblast, and you can just set up a Trick Room here, we're going to see there's actually a very interesting protect, because it will not allow the Miraidon to switch out.
Yeah, that's so true, actually, because you can't Volt Switch into the Groudon, of course. So with that kind of blocked here, Groudon is going to go for that Precipice Blade instead, what it's so good at doing, and just completely one-hit KOs this Miraidon on turn 1 here. Adrian really popping off with that Groudon restricted. Love to see it. But however, Trick Room has gone up though. So even though Leon's kind of maybe sacrifice Miraidon, it does mean that Calyrex Ice Rider can start making the use of these Trick Room turns versus Pokemon that are most likely otherwise naturally faster.
Yeah, Jamie would probably call this a paid switch into the
Yes.
Calyrex Ice Rider here. But now it is perfectly positioned, and the combination of potentially the Glacial Lance with a Foul Play here could deal a lot of damage into either of these Pokemon and take them out.
Yeah, so we've got to see Adrian go on the defensive here. But luckily, there are a few pieces that can be sort of switched in. Calyrex Ice Rider of his own is most likely going to be able to take a Glacial Lance fairly well, because the only other offensive threat is that Farigiraf here. But you've got to be careful, though, because it does have the Foul Play. And so that can definitely punish an opposing Calyrex Ice Rider coming in, for the same reasons that we've talked about why Scraggy has Foul Play too. So Adrian can, to kind of counteract both of that, potentially go for the Terror of the Groudon into that Fire typing, and that kind of covers both those options, and you can still then do more damage.
Yeah, and we see no switches on either side here. There was a opting into the potential switch into Scraggy, but we see the first Terra here into the Terra Water, a more defensive Terra. The question is, will Groudon also Terra? It can't protect, and it didn't switch out. So yeah, most naturally, there's a Terra Fire on the Groudon here as well. Will basically allow it to take that Glacial Lance, and then the combination of Foul Play, which I think we saw going into the Fluttermane, to make sure that despite the Focus Sash to take it out here, but it basically gives another free turn to the Groudon.
Okay, so Glacial Lance first. Crucially, going before the Farigiraf here, that could be relevant into future games. Knocking down Fluttermane down to that Focus Sash, and yeah, as you said, Barish, Foul Play targeted into that Fluttermane. Really nice there. It just protected. Quite a safe double up there to kind of keep the rest of the Pokemon safe. But what is this Groudon going to do? It's been left alone still, and it's going to be the Terra Fire in the Sun. Heat Crash into this Farigiraf here. And despite Farigiraf being a heavy Pokemon, that still does so much damage.
Yeah, luckily it had the Electric Seed boost there to like just barely survive. But now we're in this position where Adrian is like, I can just switch in my own Calyrex, start imprisoning, and then all you have left to do is, it's still a high horsepower, and it's still, or now, super effective into the Groudon, but you're limited to that one single move. My question is, it's actually the Brute Bonus switching in here, but I was going to say, could you bring in your Scraggy and then maybe encore your opponent into imprison? So it's kind of stallmate, and you both don't really progress in the game.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Then you've kind of got a little bit of a stall war going on, but like the Encore will eventually run out in that scenario, so maybe players could like play around that slightly. But going into this turn, though, we've got the Brute Bonnet in here. I wonder what the speed interaction between that is and the Calyrex on the other side here. But actually, it looks maybe the bait here. Everyone's switching out immediately.
Yeah, switching out immediately, and now maybe the Terra Water early on will be punished later with a potential Seed Bomb, but not for now, because it's switching out. Second Calyrex hits the field. We're going to see another switch from the Farigiraf into our fan favorite. This is why we picked this, or why you picked this game for stream here. It is the Scraggy now making an entrance into the field, getting intimidated off on both opposing Pokemon here, limiting their damage output. And the first Glacial Lance, but resisted from both Pokemon, barely doing any damage.
I really like this play so far from Adrian, but we've got to talk about this Precipice Blade first coming out. That's nothing to shake a stick at. Doing a decent chip to both of these Pokemon, putting them in range of more attacks going forward. But yeah, at the moment though, like, that was a really nice play from Adrian, right, to kind of help stall up Trick Room a little bit more, because obviously the Brute Bonnet couldn't even protect on that last turn.
Yeah, it couldn't protect, so it really didn't want to take a Glacial Lance, and that's why it swapped out. But keep in mind, not only do you have the Imprison, but you have 2 Pokemon that resist Glacial Lance, so the damage output is already reduced anyway. You can buy yourself 1 extra turn with this Fake Out coming out here, so you maybe get another Glacial Lance or a high horsepower out here, which barely misses the KO on the Groudon.
Okay, really close there, and now we get to see this Groudon, of course, move yet again after that Calyrex Ice Rider just flinched. It's going to be that Heat Crash into Scraggy, but it survives! Scraggy, you were so good with that EVO Light and the Intimidate, despite its... like, it can't be very heavy, Barish. Come on.
I was just going to say, like, obviously the Farigiraf is quite heavy and reduces the damage, but Scraggy, out of all Pokemon, taking a Heat Crash, a Terra Fire Heat Crash from the Groudon like a champ, 2 HP and 1 more turn here to go. So maybe you can now Encore the opponent into Heat Crash, so that's resisted by your own Calyrex, but I really struggle to see a path for Leon at the moment to maneuver around what is left on the opposing side, because Glacial Lance is not doing a lot of damage at the moment. You will be imprisoned soon, and then the only option will be higher horsepower, and I mean, the Brute Bonnet won't mind that.
No, you're very right, actually. So actually, Calyrex Ice, well, switching immediately out here, back into the Brute Bonnet here, maybe hoping that high horsepower comes out instead from Leon's Calyrex instead, to see if, like, they can get away with just being switched in at the moment. So here it comes. It's that coaching. Scraggy putting in the work still. And so now...
this is a Glacial Lance, though. It might actually catch the switch here.
So true.
There it is, +1 Glacial Lance now, taking the KO on Groudon and barely missing out on Brute Bonnet.
Okay, so with the bulky defense on this Brute Bonnet, is actually able to take the hit, but has too much damage been done here by Leon for Adrian to actually do anything with their own Calyrex here?
Yeah, it's very fair. It was just a second ago that I said it. I really struggled to see a path for Leon, but that coaching into Glacial Lance just worked out perfectly here. Now Trick Room is over there. The electric terrain is also off, so you have the combination of Imprison and Spore, for example, right, which completely shuts down your opponent. So, yeah, the question is, has too much damage been dealt here? And maybe that gives Leon a chance. But Farigiraf in the back will also struggle a little bit against these Pokemon. So it's going to be very, very, very close.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close, but I can see Adrian, like, pulling something off here at the moment, because, yeah, if you know you've got this faster Calyrex Ice Rider here, and you do get the Imprison off, then all the damage is going to be coming from Foul Play on Scraggy, which could just go down to a Brute Bonnet attack, or from high horsepower.
Yeah, you might not even need Imprison right now, because you could pick up the KO on Scraggy. That's why it's switching out, potentially. Picked up the KO with Glacial Lance and then just Spore or even Seed Bomb.
Yeah, so true. And yeah, this Calyrex Ice Rider being Water type isn't the greatest thing in front of what this Brute Bonnet can do. So yeah, Leon may be predicting this slightly, going for that Protect and getting in Farigiraf into position, so you can at least threaten some foul plays going into the next turn. But yeah, 1 Protect there is definitely not going to save this Farigiraf. That's on the other side from this double-pronged lance now. Farigiraf goes down and Scraggy comes in, at least Fake Out's on the line again.
Yeah, and neither of these Pokemon carry Protect, so maybe now with a Fake Out Glacial Lance, you bring it down to 1v1 or 1v2, but it's still really difficult. Who are you going to Fake Out here? Are you taking a Imprison, are you taking a Leech Seed, or are you taking a Spore? It's really hard to play around both these opponent Pokemon.
Yeah, really good point, actually. And I'm guessing Adrian's like kind of assuming maybe that both these Pokemon are indeed fast on this Calyrex. I don't know if we like know that yet per se, but a lot of these Pokemon, these players might be able to assume more than we can at this point. But yeah, I would say maybe... let's say you Fake Out the Brute Bonnet, because a Spore could last so many turns, and then you just hope high horsepower is enough to kind of maybe 2-shot the opposing Calyrex after a Chilling Neigh boost.
Yeah, we actually see a play around the potential Imprison here. There's actually Rocky Helmet, which will take out the Scraggy as well. But he said, I don't want to risk the Imprison here, so I'm going to Fake Out and high horsepower. There is actually Glacial Lance, no Imprison coming, and confirmation as well that Adrian's Calyrex will be faster, dealing solid damage here. I mean, Brute Bonnet also faster than the Calyrex. High horsepower takes the knockout. Now it's a 1v1, but with Imprison and Leech Seed, I don't see any way for Leon to overcome the opposing Calyrex Ice.
Yeah, this looks really tricky now, doesn't it? Because you can just, and you still got the, you still got the Citrus Berry, but to be fair, like you've got the Unnerve ability on Leon's end, which is going to prevent that other Calyrex from actually eating its Citrus Berry. To be fair, like you've got some boost, 3 attack boost is something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Maybe I spoke too soon, and that like +3 high horsepower like twice will actually be enough. There's the lead seed, so no Imprison coming off, wants the recovery first. And the question is a +3 single target Glacial Lance enough to pick the knockout here?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look like it at all, no. And like, interestingly, yeah, going for the Glacial Lance actually kind of makes sense here because it's pretty much a very similar power level, one single target compared to a neutral high horsepower. So rather than wanting to risk the miss on high horsepower, they're going for the Glacial Lance instead. But I think, yeah, given the speed, the amount of health they've got now, I think high horsepower does seem worth it.
Yeah, and that's a very crucial turn here. Calyrex survives the Glacial Lance, and in return there's a high horsepower. Will that be enough? A +3 it is!
What a play from Leon there to kind of pull it out of the bag of that high horsepower there and actually taking it with all of those attack boosts, bringing us to a game 2. And Leon being one game away from getting their first phase 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kind of we're already like thinking, oh, this is going to be really hard for Leon to come back. But one thing the oversight was that ADRIAN was a little bit too passive and was waiting too long to bring in their own Calyrex. And at this point, Calyrex was suddenly at +3. Right? And even if like high horsepower is the only move, if you're at +3, that's really gonna hurt. And like 2 high horsepowers at this stage would have been enough to pick up the KO. So I think for ADRIAN, the key component will be make sure that you lock down that opposing Calyrex Ice earlier so it can get the knockouts, it can get the boosts, and it will stay at neutral or maybe +1 max. So then it can't like crush out all these damages and KOs.
Yeah, I think that's got to be right. I mean, you've got Imprison on your own Calyrex for a reason, right? So makes sense to try and use it against Leon's Calyrex because he won because Calyrex swept with Glacial Lance, right? Yep. So yeah, just try to get into that more safe position in front of, yeah, the Farigiraf. And I think you called it well, Barish, there. He was just a little bit too safe with trying to get it in the right position.
But also like props to Leon. He like the one key turn in this game as well was when he decided to go for coaching and Glacial Lance and caught the opposing Brute Bonnet in the switch in as well, suddenly down to like in the reds. But they're ready for game 2.
Yep. Okay, same leads, running it back for both sides. Fluttermane is gonna get that speed boost again, it looks like, and there's gonna actually, no, sorry, not that speed boost, because it's just sat in the... oh, sorry, no, it is the sun. I was like, where's the Koraidon to give the sun boost? I'm like, no, there's a Groudon. There's a Groudon, David, come on.
Yep.
All right, then we still got a Groudon. All right, Groudon's still relevant, everyone, all right? Okay, so yeah, going to this turn, do you do the same thing again? Like, because a Miraidon KO turn 1 seemed amazing for ADRIAN, right? But obviously it didn't win in the game.
It was really well positioned here, and it looks like Leon doesn't want to risk it this time and potentially immediately swap out here. The Precipice Blades won't deal too much damage into these Pokemon, so it seems kind of fair. So the question is Fluttermane maybe going on the offensive here? And with a double up, maybe with a cheeky crit, can cause some problems for Leon here. Otherwise, we will just see a very easy Trick Room setup with the Farigiraf.
Yeah, true. So let's see if Adrian can potentially punish this play, as there's the Moonblast first into what was that Miraidon, and follow up by the Precipice Blades. This is going to not KO, but do a lot of damage into both of our targets there. Yeah, there's the Trick Room again. So, yeah, would you say that this is better or worse for Leon, Barish?
I mean, we talked about free and paid switches here. This was a paid switch, but the Calyrex had to pay the cost itself, basically. I mean, in game 1, I was seeing black for Leon, where I was like, this Calyrex won't be able to turn around. Now it is on the field in Trick Room, but already down to 68 HP. So it's really going to be difficult. I think another Precipice Blades might actually take the knockout here, and then you're down to like what, Farigiraf and Scraggy as 2 of your main Pokemon, followed by your only damage output. So it's going to be difficult to see. Now, of course, the Intimidate will help a little bit to survive that Precipice Blades, but then you won't be able to take any knockout because Fluttermane has a Focus Sash, and we potentially see a Terastallization on the Groudon as well.
Yeah, so true. So Leon's got his back against the wall here, but instead of protecting, going on the offensive this time. So maybe hoping Adrian's not going to double into this Calyrex, and maybe going for that Scraggy instead, which is definitely a Pokemon you need to respect in this meta. Respect Scraggy, please. As Groudon now goes for the Terrifier, which it was very good at doing last game to resist those Glacial Lances, but wasn't quite enough to bring it back this time.
Yeah, now I mean, there's the Glacial Lance, as I mentioned, but because of the Focus Sash and the Terrifier, both these Pokemon withstand, and if we see a Precipice Blades and maybe a Moonblast into that Scraggy, it might go down immediately.
Okay, there's the Precipice Blades coming out now. Is it going to be enough onto this Calyrex? Not quite, thanks to that Scraggy's Intimidate. And yeah, okay, there's that Moonblast into the Scraggy. So not doing a whole lot this turn, unfortunately, but it does mean Calyrex can get away with one more turn to do something.
Yeah, but it's now really, really difficult to get around that Groudon. And yes, the Intimidate was crucial to survive the Precipice Blades. But now, if you want to use like your foul play on the Farigiraf, you mentioned that during team preview, it will do even less damage into the Groudon, which is naturally bulky. With reduced attack, will also take less damage from the foul play. So maybe we see a double up with high horsepower, but then you give Fluttermane another turn where it can just attack. We see how important that Focus Sash is.
Yeah, we do. I mean, like, we've seen Adrian go for that Protect before, so they could try and do it again, and Leon could capitalize there. And as you said, then go for that high horsepower double up, but may not even be enough given Groudon's physical bulkiness.
Absolutely. We see a Protect on the Calyrex here, so let's see how this turn plays out. There's a foul play coming off, pick up the Fluttermane quite easily, the 1 HP left over. The question is, what move are we seeing from the Groudon? Might be another Heat Crash here?
Yeah, we saw how much damage that did before, didn't we?
But it actually decided to go for a high horsepower itself.
Wow, okay, so not even going for the Precipice Blades there, wanting that extra bit of damage that the single target move gives you over the Precipice Blades, and maybe slightly more reliability as well.
Yeah, slightly more accurate as well. I guess at this stage, the damage would have been enough on either side here, or either attack. But yeah, Chronospan now hits the field early enough, and Leon's Calyrex, I don't think has any boost yet, hasn't received the coaching yet from the Scraggy because it immediately went down, hasn't taken out any knockouts. So this time it's a little bit easier to lock it down with an Imprison and with the Leech Seed combination. So I think Leon must be starting to think, like, ooh, how do I turn this game around? One good thing is that Groudon can't protect, Calyrex can't protect. You have a choice specs Miraidon in the back, which can now attack everything with an Electro Drift.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, we're kind of thinking we're in the same position as last game, but no, you have a whole nother restricted in the back. But high horsepower with a helping hand is not quite enough on this Groudon. And now Glacial Lance comes back in response from Adrian, able to pick up that annoying Glacial Lancing Calyrex on Leon's side, finally, in this game too, putting Adrian in a really decent position here.
Yeah. That was such a crucial survival here. We'll see which attack it actually opts for. It is a Precipice Blades, connects as well, and might just take out the Farigiraf. With a critical hit, I don't think that matters at this stage, and I think it's clear to say at this stage that Adrian is winning the second game and is taking the set to a game 3. So let's see how. I mean, we're still in Trick Room, so any combination of attacks would just pick up the knockout here on the Miraidon. So Leon actually sees the writing on the wall as well and says, no point in going any further. Let's take a moment to reestablish and see what we're doing for game 3.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, interestingly, I feel like in that first game, Adrian went, obviously, for the Moonblast play instantly into the Miraidon, right? Mm-hmm. And that Precipice Blades at the same time. Yep. So, if that Miraidon had survived the Moonblast, the Volt Switch still would have come out there instead. Yep. But I'm guessing Adrian was kind of like just going on the offensive. Maybe it's expecting Leon to do exactly that. Because then, if he doesn't Moonblast, then Calyrex just takes the Precipice Blades and then can maybe still win it out. Yep. So do you feel like it's going to come down to that mirror of those leads for a third time?
It could very well be, because you mentioned like the Volt, like surviving Moonblast and going for the Volt Switch would most crucially break the Focus Sash. And then in the next turn, you don't need to double up into Fluttermane. You can just take it out with a Glacial Lance, and you're free to redirect your second attack into the Groudon as well. But the Groudon seemed to be like a very stable, very good lead here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it again.
Yeah, I mean, it was putting in work, wasn't it? It was just dishing out a lot of damage, and we're seeing it yet again. But, yeah, we still got the Calyrex and the Miraidon on the other side. It's not the Farigiraf instead the lead of it, but you can still do that same sort of Trick Room play, though, this time. And particularly if you've got the Terra Water on that Calyrex, that looks quite strong into what Adrian's offering.
Yeah, the question really comes down to, will you survive the Moonblast? And if you survive the Moonblast, which attack are you picking into that Groudon? We see a potential Trick Room coming up here, but whether you go for Volt Switch here, maybe bringing in your Scraggy to start setting up, or if you go for Draco Meteor because you need the damage into the opposing Groudon, maybe you expect, oh, there's actually Switch here in what they bring, and it is the Landorus in the back.
Wow, okay, so maybe a less Trick Room-based game potentially here, depending on how speedy this Landorus actually is here. There's a lot of variations to how speedy people players are running their Landoruses, so maybe we'll just see Leon going on the offense here. But first, that Terra Water, making sure that you can take on those fire moves and that Shadow Ball, namely on the Flutter main side here. And if the Glacial Lance can come out immediately, yeah, that's going to do a lot of damage. So first that Shadow Ball, dealing still a respectable amount of damage, to be fair. But Groudon's going to follow up yet another Precipice Blades hit. It's definitely got his goggles on, has this Groudon today. And it is actually going to be that Trick Room.
Yeah, and I really like your call out on the Terra, because viewers at home might be thinking, why the Terra Water? We don't really see the need, because specifically for this play, Shadow Ball, we saw how much it dealt when it wasn't super effective. If you combined it with a super effective, like non-Terra Calyrex, taking the Shadow Ball, Glacial, and Precipice Blades, it would have went down here. Now we're in a very comfortable position where a combination of Glacial Lance hitting both targets, and if you force the Terra Fire and then punish it with something like an Earth Power, that could get you back into this game free.
Oh, that could be really crucial here, couldn't it? But does the Landorus underspeed the Groudon in the Trick Room? And is the Groudon powerful enough with its Heat Crash to actually one-hit KO this Landorus as well? Because there's no Intimidate down on it either. So here it is. Glacial Lance knocking down that Flutter Mane to Focus Sash. We've seen it in the other two games here. But crucially, who is moving next? Is it Groudon? Is it Landorus? It is that Landorus actually with the Earth Power into that Assault Vest. Groudon absolutely taking it down. That is such a slow Landorus. So well played from Leon there. I just did not expect that to be the case.
I don't think anyone expected this to underspeed, but maybe if you think about the Icy Wind on the Flutter Mane, you were like, he might want to go a slightly faster Groudon to then make use of the Icy Wind. And on the other side, Leon was like, hey, I am running a Trick Room team. Maybe this is a full bulk Landorus with barely any speed. And in that specific combination, we see Landorus running like almost max HP at 196. So in that specific scenario where Groudon is faster than usual, Landorus is slower than usual, this is exactly where it comes into play and takes the very crucial knockout here.
Wow, Leon just identifying what he needs to do to deal with this Groudon that could just sit there for the last couple of games. Absolutely nails it with that Landorus now. So, going into this next turn, though, you still got a pretty healthy Miraidon in the back when Leon is then out of Trick Room, and we know the MVP Scraggy is in the back, and here it comes.
For you at home, Scraggy coming back in, getting the Intimidate off, and even if there's an Imprison and a high horsepower, will just take out the Flutter Mane here. That's exactly why it's protecting, to buy itself another turn. And Calyrex, now we know it is faster outside of Trick Room, so slower in Trick Room. There's the first Glacial Lance coming off here and doing damage. Didn't even need to go for the high horsepower because it's slower anyway, but won't deal too much damage. So the question is, what is coming in retaliation? There's the Imprison finally hitting the field. Interesting.
Okay, so the Imprison is finally there, so Glacial Lance obviously cannot even be clicked, as well as the Trick Room on the Calyrex's end. But the Scraggy is here. The Scraggy can still do so much here. You could high horsepower the Flutter Mane, you could foul play that Calyrex, and Leon's still in a decent position, right?
Yeah, we have two combinations. So there's either the fake out play, but I mentioned this very early on. If your opponent goes for the Imprison and you have Scraggy on the field, you can go for the Encore play.
Oh, yes.
That's exactly what's locked in here. So Calyrex doesn't even have the chance to protect away from that option here. So we might see actually Encore into Imprison here. That's exactly what's happening.
Oh, wow.
Both Calyrex are kind of struggling on the field here. High horsepower not dealing too much damage, especially not in the resist set Root Bonnet. But now Calyrex is kind of forced to switch out.
Yeah, it is really, isn't it? And then as soon as you switch out, the Imprison is gone. So yeah, there's the Imprison just constantly trying to do something which is not going to add any sort of extra effect here. So now we're in the final turns of Trick Room, Barish. Like, what's the Brute Bonnet going to do in this position? Because it's obviously a lot more healthy now, and it's not going to worry about a Glacial Lance, at least on this turn.
Yeah, so Glacial Lance at this specific turn is still blocked, because Calyrex is technically still in the field. If it swaps out now, then in the following turn you can click it again. The question is, can you, maybe it just stays on the field and clicks Imprison again? Otherwise, if Flutter Mane comes in, it might just be susceptible to a foul play. This is exactly what's happening. It's staying in on the field.
Okay, but we've got Electric Terrain up as well. High horsepower into that slot, yeah, still not enough, but definitely a safe slot to go for. Seed Bomb punishing the Terra Water on this Calyrex Ice Rider is going to make it get that KO, but that is going to free up the Landorus to be able to come in here and still underspeed the Flutter Mane and all the Calyrex Trick Room still up, as well as that Miraidon too.
I really like the interaction. We talked about this earlier. There's a Citrus Berry Calyrex, but as long as both players have their Calyrex on the field. Neither of them can use any berries, or at least Adrian's can't use. But now that it was knocked out, the berry finally activated, healing it up just about 50% here. So now, Trick Room is over, Electric Terrain is over, but you can choose to bring in either of these Pokemon here. And the question is, can Brute Bonnet maybe take a Draco Meteor? Are you swapping out to take that Draco Meteor with your Fluttermane? Maybe you double up with a Foul Play in that slot just to make sure it goes down either way. So I think Leon found himself really maneuvering with that Landorus, taking the knockout, now in a prime position to make Scraggy enter phase 2.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. And you might be want to consider the Dazzling Gleam here, right? Because then you can still deal super effective damage into the Amoonguss, and it's also 100% accurate as well. You're also dealing damage into the Calyrex Ice Rider, and then you can follow up that Foul Play, which we know isn't quite enough yet to do the rest of the damage into the Calyrex.
Yeah, there's a Sucker Punch. Won't deal too much damage, even with a critical hit. So Dazzling coming off, you were absolutely right. Just barely missing the KO here, but there was no Spore potential, and you're still locked into the Imprison. So I really, really like what Leon is doing here, saying you can have the Imprison as much as you want, but I'm encoring you, and now actually you are the one imprisoned away.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we're seeing. But I like what Adrian's trying to do here, though, bringing it down so that Fluttermane is still in here outside of the Trick Room, and it's got Icy Wind as its spread option, but not Dazzling Gleam, unfortunately. That's exactly what you would want at this point, but instead it's the Moonblast, Icy Wind, Shadow Ball, Protect set. So is there still a way that you can kind of close this out?
Yeah, the only way I see is that maybe with the Rage Powder, you can, like, yeah, that's what's happening here, the Rage Powder, and then if you are actually maybe winning the speed tie here and get a Moonblast off, that's what's happening, or at least you're faster, take out the Miraidon, and now Scraggy's attack is going into the Brute Bonnet. The Foul Play won't deal too much damage. You probably get more in return from the Rocky Helmet. So the question all comes down to, can your Landorus take an Icy Wind?
I mean, oh yeah, it's so low, isn't it? So actually, it may not even need to be an Icy Wind, right? You could just Moonblast or Shadow Ball if it's enough, but we also know it's a bulky Landorus, so it might actually be able to survive either of those attacks, so it might need to be the Icy Wind.
Yeah, and now the question is, I mean, yeah, Leon sees that and says, I might just buy myself another turn and go for Protect. Could be punished with a Moonblast, of course. There's the Protect. Adrian isn't too worried about that. We see a little fist bump there. So let's see what's happening. There's the Rage Powder coming off, making sure that your Fluttermane will survive this turn. And it actually was a Moonblast here, so fair enough. But it's just another Foul Play, and it's basically just a matter of time at this point. And the question will come down to,
it's not even enough for a KO either. So Adrian could just go for the same play now. Otherwise, Leon was in such a spectacular position to be able to then just double target the Fluttermane in the following turn. But just the crucial amount of training on this Brute Bonnet means that Leon's maybe forced to try and go for a double Protect here to try and get out of it. Otherwise, Adrian just needs to go for an Icy Wind and hope they hit. But I think, yeah, like, Leon's back is against the wall now.
Crucial turn. Protect failing the double Protect. So let's see if Moonblast is enough. There we see the Rage Powder first. And, I mean, yes, that Brute Bonnet will go down to another Foul Play here. But there's the Moonblast. And it is not enough. It is not enough. That is actually sealing the game for Leon.
What?
Wait, hold on a second. No, I don't think Icy Wind is not taking 2 knockouts.
No.
You go for Earth Power and Foul Play, and this might be the game for Leon.
Yeah, I think so, because this Fluttermane doesn't have Dazzling Gleam. Icy Wind is its only move. Icy Wind doesn't freeze as far as I know. And so Earth Power should be enough. So yeah, here's Icy Wind, not even with a super mega crit is that gonna be enough on Leon Scraggy. And it's Scraggy in the final third game here that KOs the Fluttermane of all Pokemon to take Leon into phase 2.
Let's go, Scraggy! I mean, congratulations, what a well-played set for Leon here, facing an imprisoned Calyrex Ice Rider, but saying